Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, short video.
Is or what happened to the First Republic? The fact that Ghana is talking about the Fourth Republic brings up an obvious question. What is or what happened to the First Republic, the Second Republic, and the Third Republic? And will there be staged another coup to overthrow the Third Republican Constitution in December 1981.
That I will uphold
the sovereignty,
the
integrity
integrity
of Ghana.
of Ghana.
That I will be faithful
and true to the Republic of Ghana.
and true to the Republic of Ghana.
And defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana.
And that I dedicate myself
To the service and well-being
Fourth Republican Constitution. This was designed by a consultative assembly appointed by the military junta PNDC that overthrew the Third Republican Constitution. They designed a hybrid constitution which has elements of the Westminster system and the American Constitution. Why this constitution has lasted over 3 decades and whether or not it could be sustainable in Ghana's fourth effort at a full democracy are the reasons for the 77 stories. All the stories are true and are written from the perspective of a political news reporter who saw the stories but also knew the backstories and many of the antecedents to the stories. Thus, the book is comprehensive and its editorial stories published at the end indicates the verdict that the writer passes on some of the key issues. And finally, the book launches Friday 29th November. Make sure you do not miss it and certainly grab a copy. And now, the enactment.
77 stories. 77 stories unfold. Chronicles of the Fourth Republic bold. Told by a reporter with a watchful eye. Who knew the truth, the whispers, the why. Hybrid born of two great streams, Westminster's structure, America's dreams. 3 decades strong, it still prevails. But what's the secret behind its sails? Why did the First Republic, the Second Republic, and the Third Republic fall? What lessons rose to answer the call? And as the future whispers of change, will a Fifth Republic rearrange? This book peers deep, explores the span of Ghana's constitutional plan, a tale of leaders, law and power, a nation's strength, its defining hour.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Later tonight, we have Nana Sasse's poetry, but I'd like to give you, our distinguished audience, an insight into one of the stories in the book. And the book catalogs all the stories that have defined the Fourth Republic from the beginning until the end. This particular story occurs on the 28th of December, 1993. It's a story whose relevance has shaped what has happened in the Fourth Republic. So on this occasion, on the 28th December 1993, the news media had published on the 26th of December 1993 a timetable of the celebration of activities for the end of the year. For the last 10 years before 1993, that list had looked the same. It will usually announce that the Christmas Day and Boxing Day were to be observed as statutory public holidays. It will also announce that the 31st December would be observed as a public holiday. This announcement was made sometime around the 24th of December. On the morning of the 28th of December, Peter Adom-Otchere took out a writ to the Supreme Court to suggest to the court that the celebration of 31st December was contrary to the Constitution. The 1992 Constitution says in its very early clauses that the Constitution is the fundamental law of the land, and any other law found to be inconsistent with the Constitution was, to the extent of the inconsistency, null and void. Peter Adom-Otchere was suggesting to the Supreme Court that the celebration of the 31st December Revolution under the Constitution was inconsistent with the Constitution. This was a very major issue. Today, we may not see how major it was, but it was a major issue. Adom-Otchere went to court with very little in his hands, and the court started around 9 o'clock. 9 Supreme Court judges were hearing the matter. Adom-Otchere was going to tell the court on a moral issue that the Constitution should not have a situation where it is celebrating the event of a coup d'etat. He considered a coup d'etat abhorrent to a constitution. Now, how do you have a constitution in 1992, started in January 93, and then you are celebrating 31st December revolution? So he went to court. It became more difficult when at the outset of the case, the learned Chief Justice, the learned Adom-Otchere, indicated clearly that he was not willing to lead the Supreme Court to make rulings that, as he looked at it, that the court cannot protect. He wanted the court to be able to make rulings that can have the coercive authority of states to back those rulings. He asked Adom-Otchere time and time again during the oral argument that if the court were to rule that 31st December was not a holiday, how will the court enforce it? Do they have armored vehicles to enforce it? Because this celebration was being organized by the government and especially soldiers. So right at the outset of the case, Peter Adom-Otchere had questions to answer, but he persisted. At 11 o'clock, the court decided to rise and announced that they will be given a verdict at 2 p.m. that afternoon. The whole Ghana Bar Association was captured in frenzy, wondering what was going to happen today. For you to get a better understanding, the president of the day, Flight Lieutenant Rawlings, was also the leader of the military junta that had organized the 31st December revolution. They had been in power for 11 years, and they had formed a party and successfully been elected in November 1992. This celebration was very, very important to the head of state. And here we were, the learned Chief Justice had given clear indications that he was not going to give a ruling that the court cannot protect. So some of those lawyers told people between 11 and 2 o'clock that the fact that the court had asked to come back at 2 o'clock gave a lot of hope and insight into what the court was likely to do. This was the first major test of the new Supreme Court under a new constitution, confronted with the major challenge of interpreting an act of the revolution, which was now part of the constitution, to be inconsistent with the constitution. Adom-Otchere seemed to make a lot of sense, because he said it is also part of democracy that when a court gives a ruling, the court must be respected and must gain that respect and the trust of the people. The court should not give a ruling where people will disobey it. But alas, the 5 judges in the minority, in the majority, were seduced by the principles of natural law. They felt that how can you have a coup d'etat being celebrated under a constitution? That a coup d'etat was the most important abhorrent to a constitution. A coup d'etat and a constitution are like heaven and hell. The constitution is heaven and the coup d'etat is hell. So they didn't know how you can combine heaven and hell under a constitution. They decided that in spite of the fact that the court may not have armored vehicles to make a decision, that they will make a decision against the celebration of a coup d'etat under the 1992 constitution. This ruling was met, as expected, by invectives from the ruling government. As expected, his first reaction to the ruling, which was a 5-4 decision cancelling the celebration of 31st December, was that, as according to J.J. Rawlings, that no one can obliterate 31st December from the history of Ghana. This is what Flight Lieutenant Rawlings said. Many of his ministers took turns to attack the court at a military parade organized on 31st December. Nonetheless, they argued that they were organizing a parade and a route march to commemorate the end of the year and the beginning of a new year. So they organized the parade anyway. Some people felt at that time that Adom-Otchere was right because the soldiers went ahead to celebrate. But after many years, when we put this book together, we thought that it is important that a national monument be made to remember those judges who gave us this constitutional authority and set Ghana clearly on a new agenda, put out a loud announcement to the military junta and to the whole world that Ghana was new. Honorable Foreign Minister, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the book is recommending that the following men be immortalized in the history of Ghana. I mentioned their names: N.Y.B. Adade, J.R.M. Francois, Justice K.E. Adom-Otchere, Justice J.E.K. Akins, and Justice Hayfron Benjamin. Their names are written in gold as far as this 1992 Constitution is concerned. A round of applause for them as they have all passed. We also must mention the courage of Peter Adom-Otchere, who went to court that day and decided that he will test this 31st December when it looked like it was not even useful to test it. Peter Adom-Otchere, of course, later became the Speaker of Parliament during the tenure of the first MPP administration and the third Parliament of the Fourth Republic. How did this story find its way into our book? So many years ago, I had a conversation with the president in the year 2000, just in the heat of the campaign. And I asked him randomly that who does he think is the best lawyer in Ghana? In those days, President Akufo-Addo had conducted many Supreme Court cases for the New Patriotic Party, for demonstrations, for independent media, and he had regularly been confronted by Dr. Obed Asamoah, who was the Attorney General in court. So when I asked this question, I thought that he was going to jokingly point to himself. But I was surprised that the president took the question quite seriously. And he started thinking. So for about half a minute, he didn't say anything, he was still thinking. I began to throw names at him. I said, J.K. Ajeman. He nodded. I said, C.B.K. Zuenis. He nodded again. Then I wanted to get his attention and get the question answered. So I said, what about Obed Asamoah? Then he smiled and said, Obed is an able man, and that all the names that I have mentioned are very distinguished. But these were his words. Because of 31st, he thinks for his generation, the best lawyer is Peter Adom-Otchere. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how the story finds its way in our book on page 35, story number 5, entitled J.J. Rawlings, Rude Awakening to the New Democracy, the 31st December court case. We shall never forget the work of Justices N.Y.B. Adade, J.R.M. Francois, K.E. Adom-Otchere, G.E.K. Akins, and Charles Hayfron Benjamin. May their names be written in gold. Let's now have Kwampa play something for us as we get ready to officially launch the book.
All right, let's do this one. Susu baby baby Fabwa Ghana Na Ghana beyo Enye yo Ife mele wana Kwampe Susu baby baby Fabwa Ghana Na Ghana beyo Enye yo Ife mele wana Nkoni bebe Susu baby baby Fabwa Ghana Na Ghana beyo Enye yo Ife mele wana Mangana, Adisha, Mama, Mama, Mohammed, so young Fabia, go yet, Yodo, young fan, so my if it's all my young Cassia Japadia, yet none of tea, I said, to Homa, empty as a man, say, young song Ghana, and yes, I bet Dachi Chirima, Wabeba, Bibu, and for Quampa, so baby, Fabwakana, Nakana Bio, Yengo Bime, so baby, Fabwakana, Nakana Bio, Memangana, Adisha, Mama, Mama, Mohammed, so Yemfa Biakoye, Yodo, Yemfa, so my yemai. If it's all my Yanka say Japadia, Yanana Nunti, Aberse, Ejide to Homaye. Enti as a man say, and some Ghana, ye. And yes, I bet that chinchima, whatever we have for one pay. So, baby, Fabwakana, Nankana Bio, and you, a friend in the world. So, baby, Fabwakana, Nankana Bio, and you, a friend in the world. Kunso, Nimpapemo, won't find your man. En contomponen con consan, won't find your man. Anyhow, the corono, and also won't find your man. Pesamin Kumenyanso, and also won't find your man. Enti as a man of science, some Ghana, ye. And yes, I bet that change rima, whatever, but we are for Pampire. So, baby, Fabwakana. Kunso empapemo, won't find your man. In contomponen con consan, won't find your man. Anyhow, the corono, and also won't find your man. Pesamin Kumenyanso, and also won't find your man. Enti as a man of say, yes, some Ghana, ye. And yes, I bet that chinchima, whatever we are for company. So, baby, Fabwakana, Nakana Bio, and you, your friend in the world. So, baby, Fabwakana, Nakana Bio, and you, your friend in the world.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Before we get another story rendition from newscaster Natalie Ford, let's hear Asemi Deka from the choral group. Asemi Deka. Thank you very much. Natalie Fort.
That's on Election 2000, brings about Ghana's first presidential debate. A very critical story even in this time. Even though Ghanaians and Americans have traditionally voted in the same year, 1992 and 1996, it was only in Election 2000 that the real similarity in the Ghanaian and American election timetables became obvious to many Ghanaians. This realization was first occasioned by the launch of American media giant cable news network CNN. That was sometime in 1997 on the platform of MultiChoice, a South African satellite broadcaster. Since its launch, Ghanaians could watch live news from the United States. CNN gave significant coverage to the American campaign and election in the year 2000, and incidentally, the political matrix was also co-terminus. While the Democratic Party's incumbent, President Bill Clinton, was exiting on account of term limits, the National Democratic Congress, NDC's, of similar political philosophy as the Democrats, that's the incumbent President Jerry John Rawlings, was exiting by same reason of term limit. Vice President Al Gore had become the presidential candidate of the Democratic Party, just as Vice President Mills had become the presidential candidate of the ruling party. These similarities in the dynamics made CNN's political broadcast exceptionally relevant to the Ghanaian political terrain during the campaign of 2000. Now, Ghana had never, in the history of the country, organized or ever seen a presidential debate among competing presidential candidates. CNN's coverage of the debate excited the new generations of Ghanaians, namely politicians, journalists, key civil society actors, and pressure began to mount on presidential candidates, on the EC, as well as the GJA, to think about how to organize a televised debate for all presidential candidates, which was akin to the American process. Now, fast forward, debate momentum builds in the ruling NDC, and as the ruling NDC declines participation. As the momentum for debates were building up, it became very obvious that many Ghanaians were excited to see the ruling party's candidate, Vice President Mills, go toe-to-toe with opposition leaders, especially the NPP's John Agyekum Kufuor, and the leader of the ruling party's breakaway group, the Reform Party's Gusi Tano. It soon became obvious that Professor Mills, his candidature, and his erstwhile announced to resolve to consult his predecessor, Jerry John Rawlings, by day and night, would be the focus of this debate. Political parties needed to confirm their participation in this debate. It was to be held barely a month before voting day on December 7. Just before the D-Day, the ruling party announced their decision to decline participation in this critical debate. And this reason given was that candidate Professor Mills was very busy on the campaign trail and had to combine that with attending to his official duties as vice president. Now, after some time, by the end of October, all 6 remaining presidential candidates, namely John Agyekum Kufuor of the NPP, Edward Mahama, PNC, George Hagan, CPP, Augustus Gusi Tano, National Reform Party, Daniel Augustus Latte, Great Consolidated Popular Party, and Charles Rico Brobe, United Ghana Movement, had gone through the balloting to determine who would speak first. Given these numbers, the candidates participating in the debates, the format could not quite mimic the American debate, which usually had only 2 participants. Now, the writer, the author of this story, was among the journalists selected to pose questions to the 6 presidential candidates and also to take turns in introducing the various presidential candidates. Without the National Democratic Congress and Professor Mills, all eyes were on John Agyekum Kufuor, the candidate of the biggest opposition party. Kufuor supporters were hoping that he would use his platform to sufficiently denigrate the work of the NDC to show that he was the president in waiting. Any honest assessment of the debate would have concluded that while Kufuor succeeded in presenting himself as the president in waiting merely by his demeanor, his candor, his appearance, and his rhetoric, it seemed, however, to lack the necessary punchlines to make it memorable. But Kufuor supporters were all the same delighted at the end of the debate because the NDC, that's Gusi Tano, now with his platform, was very articulate and heavily exposed the NDC in a manner that only an insider could. Now, the ruling party candidate, Vice President Mills, organizes his own debate. Days after the GJA and Freedom Forum debates, Ghanaians began to mock the NDC. This was per the suggestion that they had run from a debate in which Professor Mills may have performed creditably had he attended, given what they had seen during the live events. Now, he decided to organize his own debate, and after some meetings were occasioned to formulate a strategy to potentially turn this around, it was boldly decided that Professor Mills held a kind of press conference with a moderator and to take as many questions as possible from local and foreign journalists based in Ghana and abroad. The moderator, Dr. Charles Mensah, an economist husband to the EC chairwoman, current, Madam Jean Mensah, and the debate was held in one of the smaller rooms of the International Conference Center. Now, this is a key part of this chapter. Chronicle editor Kofi Kumsin drops a bombshell of a question. So the setting of the event had Professor Mills and his team seated at the high table. Dozens of journalists, nearly 100 of them, sat in the audience. This occurred about an hour before the event began. And as narrated by the author, Paul Adom-Otchere, on the morning of the event, I, a joint FM news reporter, stayed in the company of Chronicle editor Kofi Kumsin, arrived at the venue at the conference center together after Professor Mills had taken his seat. The room was too packed to find a seat. Now, it took Kumsin's tape recorder together with his, Paul's, and walked up to the high table to place it in front of the event speaker, that they might get a clear recording, as did many. The event began, with the moderator welcoming the media, reiterating the reasons why Professor Mills could not actually attend the main debate which was held prior. He summed up his introductory remarks, indicating that Professor Mills would give a short statement and proceed to take questions. Here's the bombshell. Question. Professor Mills took the mic. He was full of smiles. He seemed very content. And it was very clear that the Vice President had taken some lessons in communication shortly before the event. So dressed in a dark political suit, he spoke with that almost permanent smile. For 2 to 3 minutes, then invited some questions. Many important questions were asked and turns were taken, but one that drew the longest cheer was Kofi Kumsin's famous question, paraphrased as follows. Mr. Vice President and presidential candidate of the NDC, thank you very much for this opportunity. You have already said in Ho at the last NDC Congress in reference to Rawlins, quote, now at this stage he read from his notes, I'll call you morning, day, and night. In these circumstances, what would you do about the bigotry of the 31st December Women's Movement and their insensitive leader, First Lady Nana Konadu-Adjumani Rawlins? This was the bombshell question. This question drew wild laughter, cheers, and general noise that lasted, as you would imagine, more than 5 minutes. During the interim, and by the time Professor Mills settled to answer the question, the famous Kofi Kumsin quietly exited the hall and beckoned Paul to pick his recorder to take to his office. That was how hard-hitting this question was. Ladies and gentlemen, this is story 21 of this all-important book, Africa's New Constitutional Leadership, 77 Stories That Define Ghana's Fourth Republic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Natalie Ford. Thank you very much. We are getting closer to launching the book. Nana Asase will now give us a presentation. Spoken word.
Today of all days, when I choose to speak about mother, I wear shoes so they'll give me some soft landing. Otherwise, why would a child like me be called to a matter probably older than me in a lot of years? But you see, of what use is a son who cannot interpret his own father's dance? And a son is not held in contempt for calling his father's oath out of turn. I did not forget my manners at home. My elders, I greet you. My clansmen and my kinsmen, it is an evening. Whether it is good or bad depends on where you sit, how you choose to look at it, or whether you deny it or not. The breeze blows on all our skins. Ago, ago, ago. Amen. Of memory and time, of dreams and reality. We shall not cease telling, but welcome to Africa, where everybody knows the truth, yet a child is not allowed to tell it. But tonight, a child is summoned before his elders, and I do not have the weight of calling names or titles, lest I miss one and be made to pay many fines for the blood and toil of our fathers. The sweat of our mothers has paid for all of these things, so I speak freely as a citizen of Ghana, a child born in a good time. If I could invoke them, the 77 gods of Cape Coast, those who held the capital at first, I would have asked them, Nananum, divine the future of this child who has been born once, twice, thrice, fourth with 8 chamber pots, hoping to have a 9th soon. I would have asked them to divine the future, but you see, a child who will live long needs no charm. Oba obecheno, yemoni sumai. At 60, they would have expected us to go on retirement, but we're just showing signs of youthful exuberance. However, you see, it is important that we have some conversations. The truth is not as important as the telling it is given. And so, a child dares to point to his father's house boldly only with his right finger, for indeed, his father is simply who he will become tomorrow. And so, open your eyes and lend your ears and listen to our story like will never be told in all the textbooks which are set for us to study. Mind you, broaden your scope and let us be honest with ourselves, my people. Some things are difficult to address, yet who will bail the cat? Ago.
Ago fiha. In this fourth republic, five exceptional men have borne the lash of our tongues. Yet you realize that from where we sit, their gait has been exceptional, for there are beautiful moments that we can recount. But you realize that even when a new child has been born, it appears that we are all travelers, and so he is simply here to take another's place, for another must die. 77 gods. If each one of them could tell one of these stories, I wonder whether it would be Nana Baka doing the opening and whoever is doing the closing. But you see, it falls to humans to tell our own stories. And so the Apostle Paul, what's the Paul? The Apostle Paul threatens us to tell the truth in which color, the truth in which tongue. The truth is simply Ghanaian. The truth sits with you and sits with me. And so to him what is good is not good. Let him beat his chest and feel if he does not feel the reverb of his heart. And that is what instills patriotism in a child who will grow to stand at the fore of this country. A child is nothing. It is only the glory of his forebears that the world sees and tolerates in him. And so, where do we go from here? Let me add the 78th. Next time it might be that book of poems that we will read at Ghana's ceremonial when she is celebrated again on the face of the world. You see, they say my words are heavy. It is simply because as a people our dreams are heavier. We continue to wait for those skilled hands you choose to call leadership that will maybe take us out of the incubators you call fantastic ideas, so we can begin to take our very first steps. They say it rises and falls on leadership. The burdens of a great vision weighs the shoulders of the mind. The king casts his crown because it becomes a burden when he has entered his favorite's chamber. Shall we begin to count speeches? Shall we begin to count incidences? Shall we begin to count offenses? And shall we begin to count all the smiles that we have had in the face of these 5 kings? Ghana. That name sounds beautiful in my mouth. How would you translate it in Dagbani? How would you call it in any other tongue that you speak? Tonight, our mother tongue remains the truth. Welcome to this place where finally a child is allowed to stand before his elders, invoke inap sebis, tell the truth, and go home, for indeed he is a proud citizen of this country. Ago. I issue a disclaimer. When all of this has been shared, after this book is launched, whatever you see is for your eyes, for your mind. The tongue is simply a stranger between thought and conversation. I take that again. The tongue is simply a stranger between thought and conversation. He has simply dared to paint every single day like he saw them from his letters, dared like Kwanpa would cast it in song every single day, dared to attempt what I would do if I was supposed to drop 77 in how many minutes? I'm the writer king who sips communion wine from the calabash. I came to pour libation. The 77 gods and our ancestors have been invoked too many times, they hardly have time to be dead. And so, John and Nana and Jerry, whose turn is it? Which place do you hold? Mind you, when the frog is laid in state, then we can actually have his true measure. Not every prey needs to die, but a man only dies this once. Like I have all of this stage, all of this life is it. Ghana is the stage for these beautiful stories. My neighbor, next time you choose to invoke service, 30 would not be enough. Even my 40 would not be enough. We have had 77 enough to cross all the rivers of this life, and we have 7 extra. Invoke 77 service, but make sure that when you have a conversation with the king and you're done, your neck will not become a matter for discussion. My people, My words might not be so easy to decipher now, but when you have left, place your head on that soft pillow. Every single thought is in your head. Let it settle, let it be filtered, and then taste the truth on your tongue. I will go, so many more will follow. But after these 77, may they be 100. After these 77, may we have 150. After these 77, may we have many more. Bold statements, bold stories, bold recollections of days that have shaped the destinies of this nation. The road ahead is longer than the ones we have left behind. My people, let us be kind to Mother. I am a proud son of Ghana. I hope you are too. But on the day when I talk of her, dearly beloved, I choose to wear shoes so that when I hit harsh reality, they would give me soft landing. Paul, a hunter's friend, does not beg for meat, my brother. I came to probably poke hard things on the head. At your son, meko, diaka, mediaswao, medasi.
Thank you very much, Nana Sase. It's a Friday, so we have to be wrapping up so we can have a Friday evening. As political journalists, we never cover stories without giving it a verdict. So from page 528 till the end, we call a set of stories the editorial stories. There we cast a verdict on most of the things we've written about and most of the things that have happened. I'll just read the headlines of the verdict, and when you get the book, you can read it. After that, the Honorable Foreign Minister, Honorable Leonard Foreign Minister, who is right now also the President-elect, Secretary General-elect of the Commonwealth Organization of Nations. A round of applause and congratulations to Shirley Ayoko-Botchwey, who is also a former member of parliament for Anyaso Utu. But I'll tell you my own political experience when I first met Shirley Ayoko-Botchwey. I had heard her name and they said she was MP for Anyaso Utu. So when I saw her, I looked at her, I said, Anyaso Utu, nice woman like this. How is she able to manage it? And then the MP people said, Shirley, you don't know, Shirley. So she will be doing that on her soon. So the editorial stories, the first one is a verdict, and it reads, the Supreme Court, the backbone of Ghana's Fourth Republic. The other one is the Fourth Republic and the International Monetary Fund. The next one is the Galamsey phenomenon. The next one, which is one of my favorites, is Mahamudu Bawumia, the discovery of the Fourth Republic. And then there is another one, which is independent media, the Fourth Republic, and the dangers of fake news. Then we've also written on, this one is the most controversial, and this takes a lot of pages because we had to really drill down to secure the verdict. And it says, Nana Akufo-Addo, the most impactful politician of the Fourth Republic. Now, on this one, we give it several headlines and denominators. The first one is, we consider mobilization, demonstration, and influencing as an important aspect of democracy. There we say in the Fourth Republic that Nana-Addo is the greatest mobilizer from the Komi Preko event. Then we talk about the Department of Campaign and Elections. And we say again that as far as the Fourth Republic is concerned, for his mammoth campaign in the 1998 Sunyani contest, which he lost, and the impetus that he gave to the MPP's 2000 campaign, the famous Adom-Otchere puts Akufo-Addo as the one who leads in the Department of Campaign and Elections. And then we come to conciliatory politics. That's also another important department of democracy which has sustained the Fourth Republic. No one comes close to Akufo-Addo, who conceded defeat with just 25,000, separating himself and the winner in 2008. So on conciliatory politics, he wins there too. And then we come to enhancing media plurality. Enhancing media plurality, Akufo-Addo had led in the courts many of the cases that granted independent media, especially the case entitled the NPP versus GBC, where the Supreme Court established the obligation of the state broadcaster to allow equal time to all political parties during elections. There again, Enhancing media and plurality, we give it to Akufo-Addo. Expanding the franchise, there too, it's Akufo-Addo's take, because it was he who in 2010 decided that if the NPP was not going to expand the electoral college which votes for its leaders, it used to be just 2,000 people. Akufo-Addo decided that he will not participate if the party cannot amend to expand it to what we have today. So on expanding the franchise, which is an important part of democracy, we give it to Akufo-Addo. And then the eventual one, impactful social interventions. I need not say more. They call it FSHS. That certainly is the most impactful social intervention policy. So we conclude on the verdict that Nana Akufo-Addo is the most impactful politician of the Fourth Republic. Then there's another editorial, J.A. Kufuor, the most stabilizing factor and anchor of the Fourth Republic. Here, we make the argument that the security of the Fourth Republic, which we found in the first two terms of Parliament, the first and second Parliament, was led by J.J. Rawlings, who was a military man. It was not clear whether he was able to keep stability because he was a military man. The first test of the stability of our Fourth Republic was to have a real civilian in charge of affairs so we can see what happened. And Kufuor did it brilliantly. 2 terms, he stabilized the Republic and gave us a great democracy. And then we come to constitutional amendment, the remedy to the winner takes all and a sine qua non for political harmony. Here we criticize the winner takes all processes that the 1992 Constitution gives us. And we argue that it is time to break the winner takes all through constitutional amendment. We also have another story. It's entitled, That's Not Politics, It's Music, which has imparted the Fourth Republic. It's entitled, From Palm Wine to High Life, Boga High Life. We ask, what has been the role of hip life in the Fourth Republic? I need not say more. We know what Kim Paluta is doing, isn't it? Okay, so we know that. And we attribute that story and hip life to Reggie Rockstone as the owner of the hip life. Then we talk about citizenship, representation, and the 1992 Constitution. There's a lot going on in that area about whether Ghanaians abroad, to what extent they can participate in our constitutional democracy. Can they be members of parliament? Can they be Supreme Court judges? Can they be ministers? We discuss all of that. Then we come to the phenomenon of spoiled ballots, where we talk about those elections that we have had significant spoiled ballots and what it means to the future of our democracy. Another one is entitled Joy FM, the first independent radio station, an instant impetus to the new democracy. So all of these editorial stories, I'm sure, is where the conversations and the arguments will take place the most. It's now my distinguished pleasure to invite the Honorable Foreign Minister, Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, and the Secretary General-elect of the Commonwealth Organization of Nations. Thank you.
Chairman of the Council of Elders of the New Patriotic Party, colleague ministers of state, honorable members of parliament, members of the diplomatic corps, members of the media, distinguished invited guests, our dear students who are future leaders, ladies and gentlemen. To begin with, let me indicate how honored I am to be here this evening representing His Excellency the President at this book launch. Books are not only a source of life lessons, but serve as a vehicle that transports us through time and beyond. The coming into being of the Fourth Republic was in no way automatic, and it is with the utmost soberness that we must reflect on the knowledge that this democracy, with its widely celebrated longevity, was not originally guaranteed. Our Fourth Republic did not come into being by way of external pressure either or by the activism of well-intentioned foreigners. The Ghanaian people themselves, through their institutions and political parties, navigated the processes and parameters of democracy with great assiduousness. They and we paid painstaking attention to detail, taking what we could and managing what was difficult to get to where we are. This book tells the story of how this navigation occurred and details the specific role of particular individuals, political parties, the Supreme Court, the Electoral Commission, and the security services. The book also shows how we as Ghanaians have navigated our own political conflicts and how we eventually resolved them. We have been able to achieve an election outcome in 2008 whose difference was 25,000 votes out of over 8 million valid votes cast. And we did not go to war because the loser and his party were magnanimous in defeat. We have gone through election petitions from either side of the divide, and we did not go to war. Ultimately, we have on 2 separate occasions achieved a peaceful handover of power from one government to the other. This book tells the entire story of Ghana's fourth Republican democracy. The media in Ghana have been a significant support base for this fourth Republican democracy, and it is gratifying to observe that it is one of the prominent media actors who has documented everything that has made the Fourth Republic possible in this book entitled Africa's Constitutional Leadership, the 77 stories that defined Ghana's Fourth Republic. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my great pleasure to declare this book by Paul Adom-Otchere formally launched. I thank you.
book together. They were very excited hearing the history of the things that have happened in Ghana. Some of them they laughed at because they couldn't imagine it. And I said, yeah, that's how Ghana used to be. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Kwampa will now lead us into the cocktail stage, which is at the back. We can interact, talk. And if you want to buy the book, it's here. It's available, and we can all share. I see in the audience also a man who I've referred to in this book many times, Mr. Samuel Atamensa, who has been with me throughout the entire journey. He gave me a job at Joy FM, and since then, you will see in the book the orchestrations that him and I have had. There's a chapter entitled President Kufuor visits City FM during test transmission. I didn't ask his permission before I put that in the book, but it's there. Everything that happened that Sunday night is all in the book when President Kufuor came to look at what we were doing with City FM. And our journey of City FM and how that has impacted the Fourth Republic is all.
This election season, Channel One TV is bringing you closer to every vote, every constituency, and every result. Our team will provide in-depth, data-driven analysis to show you what each vote means for our nation.
From the campaign trail to voting day and the final declaration of results, Channel One Television is covering it all. We'll be on the ground in all 276 constituencies, so every voice is heard and every community represented.
Our comprehensive election coverage brings you every key moment and every voice.
With updates from all stakeholders nationwide, this is election news you can trust, powered by the latest data and expert analysis.
Join us on Channel One TV for election coverage that keeps you informed and engaged.
We're here for every step of the journey. Channel One TV, your election bureau.
This election season, Channel One TV is bringing you closer to every vote, every constituency, and every result. Our team will provide in-depth, data-driven analysis to show you what each vote means for our nation.
From the campaign trail to voting day and the final declaration of results, Channel One Television is covering it all. We'll be on the ground in all 276 constituencies, so every voice is heard and every community represented.
Our comprehensive election coverage brings you every key moment and every voice.
With updates from all stakeholders nationwide, this is election news you can trust, powered by the latest data and expert analysis.
Join us on Channel